Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Look, it's a pleasure to talk to the House and to those watching on this Members' Bill in the name of Laura McClure. Sometimes it's the way these debates fall that unfortunately Laura spoke to this bill at the last Members' Day, so I will sort of, I guess, reintroduce it and give people a little bit of an overview and just explain our position on this bill and where we hope this goes through Select Committee and what we hear. So look, the Members' Bill in Laura's name is seeking to amend existing provisions under the Employment Relations Act to enable termination of employment through mutual agreement between employer and employee, allows for protected negotiations, discussions shielded from use in personal grievances between employers and employees to end their employment relationship. The purpose of it is to help employers and employees avoid costly, unfair dismissal or personal grievance processes and claims, reduce legal costs and more quickly come to a mutually agreed outcome for both parties. So look, for national and for national-led government, of course, we are very much on the side of self-responsibility, individual rights, competitive enterprise, you name it. And for us, it's very important that a workplace has the efficiency and freedom to operate and prioritising the relationship between the employer and the employee. I think to make some points here, I think the thing that is most interesting to me here is the increased flexibility for employers and employees as described above. Something that we hear often from opposition in certain areas where we debate certain issues is the ability to have an efficient workforce or an efficient labour market. I believe this would add to that. That allows people to be able to move from roles that are not suitable, that they're not necessarily happy in for either reason from both parties.
Katie is muted. I don't know how you did that, but that was, yeah.
That was to mute it from.
Oh, that's how interesting. So muting your microphone actually mutes the video as well.
Yeah. However,
okay.
I actually have found my coffee cart in a reel on the Foxton Easter page. So I've actually found something, but you know, okay, we've got to sit there and stop that and see if we can share it.
Say what they think needs to be said.
Apparently, it was a mute on the clip.
Oh,
so when I press M to mute or restream it, yeah, it did something weird.
And then people walk away and find that there's an opportunity to take a case through the lack of process being followed, and then it uncovers itself into months, if not years, if not very costly situations for both employer and employee. So look, I think it's very important to note that while we support this bill, we really do want to go through a thorough Select Committee process. We agree to support it to Select Committee. There are a number of things that we'd be very keen to investigate further and really get some good insight into. I think the importance for us is to understand what the process would look like, timing, feel like the pressure on both parties to go through the process and what that would look like. And of course, comparative to international situations, just to mention, of course, the United Kingdom's protected conversations model, which has demonstrated efficacy in supporting the balanced consensual terminations. And so it would be very interesting to see this around the rest of the world and, of course, what the international precedent would look like. Just going back to some other points within existing ERA requirements. Currently, the ERA, Employment Relations Act, for those that don't like acronyms, require employers to demonstrate a substantive justification, redundancy, misconduct, and comply with strict procedural standards to lawfully terminate employment. There are many businesses that have gone through it. There are many businesses that take other actions to avoid doing that, employees that take other actions to avoid going through those processes. And for many people, it ends in more distress, more financial implication, timing implication. Things can get messier and messier. And so I do appreciate the foresight or the thought of the member to bring this to the House, given that while this particular bill is not a coalition agreement, the coalition does have a view that what we want to do is simplify personal grievance procedures, and of course this leads to that. This is certainly an aspect of that as well. Look, something else to add to it, of course, and why we're really keen to hear from people, because naturally when we go through the Select Committee process, we're hearing from businesses, we're hearing from employees, we'll always hear from people that have gone through difficult situations, we've always hear from people that have wished or hoped that something like this would have been available when they'd gone through a process. But of course we also hear from legal areas, associations, business associations, and it adds significant context. And of course, naturally, the Members' Bill process, while not government bills, we tend to hope that the Select Committee process irons out a number of kinks and works out the workability, which we would hope that this process will determine for us. And look, like I mentioned earlier, quite keen to see how the workability of the relationship between the employer and the employee in the process goes through this to avoid any implication of pressure on that process or the relationship, and what this would do to streamline and smooth out that process as well. So just to say that, certainly in support of small business, the ability to do what, in this particular case, mutually agreed process would have us come to that conclusion, and give people a far more simple approach, because I tell you, some employers, and especially in the case of trades, the trade industry, often the case is that a builder has come up through an apprenticeship, worked for somebody else, created relationships, gone on their own, decided to start a business, gets into a position where they go well enough to employ someone else. They never went through business school. They went through, BCITO, let's just say, got their apprenticeship, earned their stripes, but never studied employment law. And actually, you just about need a PhD thesis to understand the Holidays Act for one part, and of course the rest of the Employment Relations Act, except by Dr. Carlos Chung. And look, those people are the backbone of our economy, and this is something that we believe, with the right measures in place and making sure that the workability is certainly there, and that can be going through that process, that it is there to support those people in business that don't have large HR departments and the funding for legal advice and the ability to work through all this stuff and follow those tick boxes, that have mutual agreement. And I think it's really important to reinforce that this is not about giving one person more power over the other. It is about supporting and facilitating a mutually agreed process where neither party know where each other stand unless they go through a very complicated and expensive process. So look, with that, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Speaker, we support this bill to select committee, really look forward to hearing the submissions. To anybody watching online or thinking about those that they know in business, that are watching at home on TV, please get involved in the select committee submission process, because it is very important that we have a wide range of views, experiences and expertise that are part of that, because it does genuinely allow us to see all sides of the coin, and what we can do to make sure that we make all of our legislation the best possible. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
She just basically called me stupid, didn't she? It's like, think of the poor tradies, they're too dumb.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, thanks.
There are, I'm not sure if it's come to this country yet, but there are in the United States contracting services which you can pay a company $100 a week to sit down there and have a on-call HR representative to sit and do it, designed for small businesses, such as the builder that Katie mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know who that builder is, but it's not hard to read. Learn to read. Okay, yeah, yes, she is right. It will improve efficiency. It's very efficient to pressure someone to leave and to tell them to fuck off with a thing of money. That is efficient, but it's not ethical, and we shouldn't go down that route.
The conflict of interest in that speech from Katie Nimon is just stunning.
Yeah.
Katie Nimon is the heir to the Nimon transport business in the Hawke's Bay.
Yes.
So she's currently working inside that. She's an MP at the moment. Before she became an MP, she was rising through that huge transport business in the Hawke's Bay. So like I said, the conflict of interest within that speech was just stunning, because it's bills like this that will enable large transport firms like Nimon's and also others to be able to be much more ruthless around their hiring practices, to be able to get rid of people at will effectively through quote unquote mutually agreed hiring decisions. And so,
crime theft by employer in the speech bill mentioned about bus drivers driving bus routes and refusing to collect passengers.
But you combine this with 90-day trials as well. Right? You can't look at this bill in isolation. You got to look at all the other crap that's coming with it, or that's already been established.
So you can't look at a speech like that without thinking about the wider implications of the degrading of our employment practices that are going on here, and also just the general conflict of interest around the ability to make it easier to do business from the business owners that are actually sitting on the government benches, or the people that are set to benefit from the passing of legislation like this. It's pretty astonishing, really.
Yeah.
I wonder, did Katie work alongside Brian Dawson at some point?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Because I do know Brian Dawson was a priest in charge or something in the Hawke's Bay before he ended up being the one at St. Peter's on Willis.
I don't think they ever worked alongside each other. I'm pretty sure Brian drove the buses and Katie owned the company, but
yeah. And Brian can tell you all sorts of things, such as ACI's rear tag axles are garbage compared to Scania rear axle steering.
yeah. So no, I don't think they ever knew each other.
Yeah, well, I do know that Brian did help Lawrence Yule on one of his mural campaigns.
I do think it's very funny because I'm reminded of my sister. She's currently doing an apprenticeship at an aluminium joinery company. She's got her qualifications as a builder, or to start building. But this idea that the apprentice is too dumb, we need to think of the poor tradies. My sister has read all the books, right? You can't be a tradie and not read the books. You have to know your shit, right? Especially when you go off and you start your own business. These aren't dummies.
No, not anymore.
No. We got to sit there and stop thinking about all apprentices as fifth form dropouts who couldn't pass School C or NCA Level 1. And we've got to realise that actually, even just to get the basics of an apprenticeship, you've actually got to have NCA Level 1.
It takes years, too, to get through your apprenticeship.
Yeah, I know Alan Chambers. He is of that old school thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And he has had at different points in time. I remember one stage he had 4 apprentices on the go.
Yeah, I mean, I had to get my certificate up at Toiahoma before I could sit in a digger, right? I had to use simulations and everything for 6 months before it's like, right, now you can go in the digger. It's like, yeah, we spent more time reading than being out in the field with a chainsaw. I kid you not. There's so much that we have to do before we're even allowed on the field.
It's like Brian Dawson saying about the driving simulator, and he got marked down on the snow version because he forgot to lower the transmission on an automatic gearbox in the simulation. It was about traction protection. It's not in the simulation of driving a Sterner style bus for long distance ones, because he used to drive in city buses, all that sort of stuff. And you had to go through simulators because one of the things was the SO simulator in case the desert road.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're going to write essays about this stuff too.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, I got to sit in front of a video game for X amount of hours and now I'm ready to drive a digger. No, there's a whole bunch of stuff you've got to do to get your qualifications. Like, so Katie is just like, I don't know what builders she's been around, but I would recommend those builders to go back to trade school.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok.